Have you ever just stopped and wondered how we actually know things? I mean, really know them. How do we get from a simple question, like, why is the sky blue, all the way to a life-changing discovery? Well, it's not magic. It's a journey, a process that turns pure curiosity into solid, concrete knowledge. So let's unpack that journey together, step by step. And this right here is the big question, isn't it? The world is just messy. It's a chaotic flood of information, complex questions, and raw data. So how in the world do we build a reliable bridge from all of that noise to a clear, meaningful conclusion? Turns out, we actually have a plan for that. You see, to get through all that complexity, you need a blueprint, a kind of map, right? A structured plan that guides you from where you are to where you want to be. And for literally centuries, we've been fine-tuning two incredibly powerful blueprints for discovery. First up, you've got the classic, the one we all learned about in school, the scientific method. This is our foundational guide. It's super logical. You start with a question, you do your homework, that's the research, then you make an educated guess, your hypothesis. From there, you test it, analyze what you found, draw a conclusion, and then, and this part is absolutely crucial, you tell people about it. You communicate. It's a clear, straightforward path to solving a problem. Now, fast forward to today. We have a sort of modern remix of that classic blueprint, the data analysis process. The steps might have different names, but you'll see the spirit is exactly the same. First, you figure out what you actually need to know, and you gather the data. Then comes the really hard part. You have to process and clean that data, because it's almost always messy. After that, you can explore it, build models, maybe create a data product, like the recommendation engine on your favorite streaming service. And just like its older cousin, the scientific method, the final step is all about communicating your findings. So, at the end of the day, what is data analysis? It's really the engine that powers modern discovery. It's the process of taking all that raw, messy stuff and turning it into useful information that helps us make smarter decisions. It's an incredibly powerful tool. But, like any powerful tool, how we choose to use it matters a lot. And that's because there's a twist. These logical, seemingly perfect blueprints, they can go horribly, horribly wrong. When the human element, our biases, our ambitions, our blind spots, isn't guided by a strong ethical compass, the results can be devastating. The simple truth is, the search for knowledge can never, ever come at the expense of human dignity and well-being. And history has some really painful reminders of this. For 40 years in the Tuskegee syphilis study, doctors withheld life-saving treatment from hundreds of African-American men just to see what would happen. In the 50s and 60s, the thalidomide tragedy was a direct result of cutting corners on drug testing. And who could forget the Stanford prison experiment, which showed just how quickly a psychological study could spin out of control and cause real, lasting trauma. These weren't just simple mistakes. They were profound ethical failures that forced us as a society to take a hard look in the mirror. This quote, right here, it just nails the lesson we had to learn. What these tragedies taught us is that while we can all have different opinions, the facts, and more importantly, the ethical treatment of the people who help us find those facts, are completely non-negotiable. And that hard-won realization led to a whole new set of rules. So the big question became, how do we make sure this never happens again? The answer was to build guardrails. Think of them as the safety barriers on a highway. They're the ethical principles and the strict methods that keep modern science and data analysis on the right track. This new foundation rests on a few key ideas. Principles like respect for persons, beneficence, which just means doing good and avoiding harm, and justice are now the absolute bedrock of any credible research. These rules make sure we protect people, from getting their fully informed consent before a study starts to keeping their personal information confidential. And who makes sure everyone plays by these rules? Well, that's the job of the Institutional Review Board, or IRB. You can think of them as the official gatekeepers of research. Before any study involving people can even get off the ground, an IRB committee has to review the entire plan to make absolutely sure it's ethical and that participants are safe. But these guardrails aren't just about ethics. They're also about keeping our own human nature in check. We all have cognitive biases. Confirmation bias is a big one. That's our natural tendency to look for information that proves what we already think is true. So to fight that, we rely on scientific rigor, A huge tool here is statistical inference. It's basically a formal mathematical way to use a small random sample of data to draw objective conclusions about a much bigger group. It's how we check our gut feelings at the door and protect our work from our own biases. Okay, so that brings us to the final piece of this whole puzzle. After you've asked the question, run the experiment, analyzed the data, and passed all the ethical checks, there is one last vital responsibility you have, and that's sharing what you learned with the world. I mean, think about it. A brilliant discovery that's locked away in a notebook or stuck on a hard drive is basically useless, right? Communication is what turns a private finding into public progress. It lets other scientists build on your work, and just as importantly, it gives all of us the information we need to make smart decisions about our health, our planet, and our future. And communicating well is a real skill. It's about knowing who you're talking to and not burying them in jargon. It means being honest and sticking to the facts. The best communicators often use storytelling to make complicated stuff feel relatable and exciting. And honestly, one of the biggest rules is just that less is more. Keep it simple, get to the point. So that's the journey, from a simple question to a responsible conclusion. It's a powerful process, one built on logic, rigor, and a deep sense of ethics. And in a world that is just drowning in data, opinions, and misinformation, understanding and championing this process, well, it's never been more critical. So the real question is, how will you be a part of it?